Welcome to the Time Management Podcast with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I'm a productivity coach, global speaker, time management author, and award-winning entrepreneur on a mission to share the 888 formula with the world and to remind you that it's your time. Leave it to me to bring you new time management tips, tricks, tools, and strategies, to introduce you to guests, research, and case studies from around the world, and to give you a simple 5-step process you can follow to uplevel your productivity, achieve your goals, and create a life that exceeds your wildest dreams. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Welcome to the show. This week it's you and me, and we're doing something a little bit special. I am being joined by a listener to talk about their top takeaways from a recent episode. When it comes to time management, there is no one-size-fits-all approach because we're not all the same. We all have different circumstances, different situations, and our resources are different too. Let's talk about it. This week on the episode, I am joined by a listener who wanted to share their approach to time management off the back of listening to episode 59 of the podcast, where I shared 5 time management strategies that I have abandoned that have made me more productive. When you change the way you look at your time, the time you have will change. In episode 59, we were talking about when people say that they don't have time, what they actually really mean. When people say, I am so busy, it's actually an excuse. They have the time, it's just been allocated to something else. When we can stop using these excuses, these filler words, and say, it's not a priority right now, or it is not something that can fit into the schedule that I am working with this week, then we start to become way more empowered around time rather than using time as an excuse. It is our time and we are taking control of it. Because as I shared in episode 59, my uncle's famous quote, if they wanted to, they would. If they wanted to make time, they would. If they wanted to return the message, they would. If they wanted to take that meeting, to take that call, they would. It's not about them or you or me or us not having enough time. It's quite simply that it is not a priority right now. And the faster we can accept that, the happier we are going to be and the more empowered we are going to be when it comes to time, how we allocate it and what we allocate it to. Because in episode 59, the 5 strategies that I shared that I have abandoned that have made me more productive was number 1, eating that frog. Number 2, using digital tools. Number 3, obsessing over time. Number 4, idolizing experts. And number 5, ignoring my human design. By abandoning these things and actually using my own intuition, using my own approach, allowing myself to manage my time how I always have, I have been able to become way more productive, and you can too. And without further ado, let's hear from Simon Williams what he took away from episode 59, what it brought up for him from a time management point of view, his top tips when it comes to time management, and the time management question that he asked me about when it comes to managing your to-do list and somebody asks you to do something else when you're already at capacity. What do you do? Simon Williams, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Been looking forward to it.
Let's dive straight in. Who is Simon Williams in a nutshell?
I'm shopper marketing lead at 3M, marketing manager for all of our fantastic brands, mostly on the stationery side. I look after that for the UK. Been a marketeer for 20 odd years and manager for about the last 15. But I'm also a husband, got 2 kids. I'm also a semi-pro musician and I've got 2 kittens. So I am pretty time poor.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. And for the listeners, Simon is a listener of the podcast. And this conversation is going to be based around episode 59. 59. And off the back of that episode, Simon informs me that he and his friends had a conversation over Sunday lunch and started talking about time management and how they spend their time, how they use their time, what makes them more productive, and also what they've stopped doing. I felt that this would be a really interesting, beneficial conversation for the podcast, as I love hearing from listeners about what it is they take away. And if you've been here for a while, you will know that there is no one way to manage your time. Simon, let's start here. What has your experience been like with time management over the years?
I always thought I was quite good at it, but I kind of came to a realization a few years ago that actually much of the stuff that I do as a natural habit probably wasn't helping me. And as you said, the conversation the other week was we were all talking about to-do lists, and I mentioned that I don't really work from a to-do list. And a couple of our friends who were having lunch with at the time hit the roof, including my wife. How can you not work from a to-do list? How do you even know what you're doing? And all that kind of stuff. And it turns out, actually, when we were all discussing it, my friends are saying there is a to-do list in the background, but it's not what drives me to decide what I'm doing that day. I've learned from lots of different people, managers and time management courses and all that kind of stuff. You take the odd bit here and there. As you say, you've got to make it something that works for you. I think it was really clear when we were all chatting the other week. Everyone's got a completely different way of approaching it. So I think you've got to try a few things. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. But yeah, I certainly came to the realization probably about 4 years ago that a lot of the ways I was working weren't particularly helpful. I mean, I was doing a good job, but they weren't helping me progress in my career. That was the point where I needed to really think about the process of how I approach time management. And I made a few changes and it's made a huge difference.
That is so fantastic to hear. Let's talk about your top 3 time management tips that have come as a result of your experimentation and the courses and trainings that you've done over the years.
For me, it's about the distraction. So that the more you can limit distractions and limit procrastination, the better. So there's obviously some practical things. The things that have made the massive difference for me were around distractions, around email and notifications in general. That has been the single biggest thing that's helped me. So simple things like turning off your email notifications. And I've gone a step further. I turn off like pretty much any notification I can from social media or news, browsers. The latest internet browsers always give you a news feed, which is just not helpful. So it's completely distracting. So turning off your email notifications. Otherwise, as soon as something shiny pops in, you lose track of what you're doing. So that makes a huge difference. The one that's my favorite is actually setting up a rule in email. So anything I'm CC'd on goes into a completely different folder. And if I'm honest, I probably check that once a week. When you work for a big company, I was getting 200-300 emails a day, and I've probably got down to a third of that now, and maybe even a quarter of it is actually coming into my inbox. And you miss the odd thing, but it's surprising literally how much you're not missing out on by having those things go into a separate folder. And as long as you inform people and people know, if I actually want a response from Simon, I'm going to put him in the two box, or I'm going to give him a ring actually because it's far quicker. That's been my favourite by anything. There's a few other things that we've tried in the past. I mean, I work in quite a matrix team, so we're really meeting heavy. And before COVID, when everyone was present in the office, we made a stance that we were only going to have 25-minute meetings as a standard, which made a bit of difference actually, because you don't need an hour for most topics. In fact, there's very few topics that you need an hour to discuss. So by just making the default expectation that you just put in half an hour, generally keeps you a bit more focused. You can get through your topics and then you've won half an hour back. It's obviously a little bit different these days because we have a different challenge now. I think you probably find this as well, Abigail, but because we're all remote, you end up having completely back-to-back meetings because people just look at your calendar and go, oh, there's a slot there, I'll just stick that in. And because you don't have to move, you're not moving between meetings, if you're not careful, you literally just have the whole day blocked out. So I think the other thing that we've tried to do is you can actually set for meetings to be default 55 minutes. So when you put it in, it automatically does that. And that obviously buys you 5 minutes back, which is good, but it is cultural. Unless people observe it, you still have to be a bit of a police about it. Otherwise it just drifts, and I think actually another thing I've learned is that don't be afraid to say, actually, I've got a hard stop at the hour. I need to leave. And, the more you do that, the more it sets an expectation that actually your time is precious. And if it's really, really, we can't get through stuff, then we can schedule a follow up, or we can have a side conversation. But if you don't set your stall out like that, suddenly everyone's running over on meetings and they're pinching an hour and a half when they should be an hour. So that sort of thing makes a huge difference.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. To summarize what I heard you share with your 3 top tips is that number 1, we need to be turning those notifications off. Number 2, we need to create rules within our inboxes somehow, some way, to have a secondary place where our emails are going to, if we are not primarily needed in that email, and to let people know. And then thirdly, to revisit how long we are making ourselves available for in meetings. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so, so much for sharing these. You mentioned earlier about the back-to-back meetings. I'd love to just understand how you're using AI to help with managing back-to-back meetings and all that comes off of them these days.
Well, it seems like you can do your best to try and avoid them, but reality is that a lot of the time you will end up having back-to-back meetings. The ideal approach would be to have someone in the meeting writing up your notes or being the scribe. If you don't have that, there are a lot of tools in things like Teams that I'm utilising to try and speed up the process. Teams in itself has AI in it. You can get it to transcribe the meeting for you, and we're really using that as a way of capturing the transcript. Quite often I'm attempting to send out the minutes of the meeting within the hour. So if we've got an hour meeting, I'm trying to make sure that I've got maybe AI open in the background if you don't want to use the one in Teams, and I'm just dropping all of my notes and stuff into AI as we go in the meeting. And then ideally you can use the last 5 minutes of the meeting or the last 10 minutes of the meeting, wrap up early, and then you've got a little bit of time then to just go, please summarize this, and I can get it out on email. And if you can get in the habit, it's not easy, it does take a bit of discipline, but if you can get in the habit of not thinking about the meeting as being the hour, but actually the whole process as being the hour, because otherwise you're not leaving, especially if you've got back-to-back meetings, you're not leaving yourself any time to send out the actions or send out the minutes or anything else, and you're just immediately on the back foot. Then if you've got 5 meetings in a day, you're never going to write up those actions and so the meeting's actually less effective as well. So that's what we're trying to use. Obviously many companies, you've got to be a little bit careful with what you put into AI, especially if it's internal sensitive information. Obviously at 3M where I am, we have our own version of AI that you can use, and you can do that. If you're using an external one, you just got to be careful you're not putting any sensitive information or whatever. But it is surprisingly useful to just speed up the process of writing up a meeting, or even writing emails as well. That's the other thing. You can use AI to write your emails for you. If you write it in sort of shorthand, bullet points, notes, just tell Abigail, thank you very much for having us on the podcast. I will send you a personal one rather than do it in AI, but as an example, you can say this, say that, and that also buys you a bit of time back. So yeah, work smarter, really, not harder or longer would be my suggestion.
That's so, so great to hear. Thank you for sharing. And I really love that mentality that you mentioned, where you consider the time of the meeting to be the actual, what is the content of the meeting and what's the outcome of the meeting. So it's not that you are there for 60 minutes plus another 30 minutes to write it up at the end of the day when you've perhaps been on 3 or 4 other meetings, and then you have to do the same for them as well. And obviously you then forget. And there is science around the fact that we are leaking our information and we are taking it from meeting to meeting to meeting. So our 9 o'clock meeting, we are on full focus, but by the time it gets to the end of the day, we have less cognitive resource to be able to concentrate on what it is that we are actually there to do, because our brain's thinking about the 9 o'clock meeting. But if you've already written up the notes, you've already written up the outcome, you can then be present in every single meeting that you're in. So that's a really fantastic top tip. Thank you so, so much. And I appreciate you're a very busy human. So is there anything else you would like to add to this conversation to call it complete?
I think we started talking about to-do lists. I try and make sure that, although I do a to-do list every Monday, I rip it out of my pad at the end of the week and I rewrite it on a Monday, because actually some of the stuff you didn't get round to, it's surprising how much stuff disappears and is not relevant the following week. And the reason I don't go through I don't become a slave to the to-do list necessarily, is a lot of that to-do list, especially if you use an email to write your to-do list, is other people's actions and other people's to-do list, to be honest with you. Obviously I make notes so I don't kind of forget stuff, but I try and use a kind of North Star analogy really rather than a to-do list. So set yourself big goals and short and medium term goals, but goals about where you want to get to, and I let that guide what I'm doing that week. What is it that's critical that I need to do, and anything on my to-do list that moves me nearer to that North Star, I will prioritize and do it. Anything on that list that doesn't help me get to those big goals, I just sort of put on the back burner, and I'll get around to them at some point. But that can really make you way more efficient with the limited time you have, because half the stuff on your to-do list, actually, what you find after a while is it's relevant when you write it on the to-do list. Is it actually critical when you look at that in a week's time? Some of that stuff is either a bit of a red herring or solves itself. You could soak up a lot of time doing other people's work and not your own if you're not careful.
Thank you so much for sharing how you manage your to-do list. As we said at the top of this conversation, it's so important that we understand that each of us has a different approach, and that each of us has come to this as a result of different education, learning, trial and errors. And is there anything you would like to ask me, Simon?
I actually have a burning question, because you're much more of an expert than I am on this sort of topic. I try and do all the things that I've just mentioned, and broadly I do follow those rules, and it really helps. But it's quite easy to be good time manager when you're not under extreme stress. Most of us, well, all of us, will have periods where something comes in mega urgent, or you just feel really under pressure and stressed. Question to you is, should you change tact at that point, adopt different strategies? How would you approach it? Because I find with the best laid plans, and then you get really stressed, and all your good work and all the things I've just said in the last 20 minutes go out the window sometimes when you're under a lot of stress. So you must see that a lot. And what would be your best tips for working under pressure?
In episode 19 of the podcast, I talked about how to tame your to-do list, and I recommend that people use a traffic light approach. So thinking about the activities that need to get done today in terms of green are the things that need to get done, and red are the things that can be delegated, outsourced, or totally ditched from your to-do list altogether. When something comes that's left field, that's unexpected, the first thing I would say is look at your to-do list and look at what activities on there are green, aka they absolutely have to be done today, otherwise there's going to be a big problem. So the first thing is, when you do that, then you are able to say to the person who has given you this thing to do next, is this absolutely necessary to be done today? And am I the right person to do it, on the basis that I'm already working on why? And how we word it is, we don't say no, it's how we say no without saying no. So is this really a priority right now? And am I really the right person to be working on this right now? If the answer then comes back, yes, you are, you then say, this also has to go out today. Which one is more of a priority? Again, they might then take that back from you and give it to somebody else. Equally, they might say that one can go to somebody else. So this is how we are always helping the people that we are working with, the managers, the structures, the teams, to know what we have got going on. Because when urgent things come out of the sky, people obviously forget about the other things, but the wheels of projects still have to keep rolling. We've still got clients that we are responsible for delivering things to. So the first step in my book is always to ascertain and understand the urgency, because urgency isn't always urgent, and a fire to one person isn't always a fire to another person. So that's step one. And then step two, if you have to do that, then it is a question of working out what else on your list, maybe the amber and those red activities, can be moved to tomorrow, so that these now become your solid focus. And when we were talking offline, we were talking about 90-minute productivity chunks. And when you turn all of the distractions off and you have this clear direction, this thing must be delivered by today, and this thing must be delivered by today, it is incredible how your brain will silence all the noise and give you that ability to focus and get it done, if it is falling within your wheelhouse, your skill set. Hopefully that answers your question. Anything else?
Great. Yeah, great answer.
Simon Williams, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Abigail.
If you've got a question about any of the podcast episodes that you've listened to, we would love to have you on the podcast to share your time management strategies and approach and ask me any questions about time management. For more about how to tame your to-do list when urgent things come up, check out episode 19. And Magic Time, our 10-day audio training experience, starts on the 6th of December. I cannot wait to spend 10 days with you talking about Einstein time versus Newtonian time, the truth behind Einstein's theories of relativity and quantum mechanics, experiments that prove that you are the creator of your reality, like the double slit experiment, the observer effect, how time and magic intertwines from ancient practices to today's cutting edge discoveries, and what your human design reveals about your unique relationship with time. During the 10 days, you are going to be manifesting the productivity that you want when we start having a conversation about time from a totally new perspective. As you've heard on previous episodes, time cannot truly be managed. It's really about understanding and switching our mindset to the fact that we are living in a world of 24 hours. Where am I going to allocate it to? This is the 888 formula. This is what we've spoken about on previous episodes. 8 hours for resting, 8 hours for working, 8 hours for our life. What is going on? Are we happy with the reality that we are currently experiencing? And if we aren't, what changes are we going to make? Magic Time will give you the tips, the tools, the strategies, the practical application to help you to take control of your time and manage your time in the way that works for you. As I said at the top of this episode, we've all got different circumstances. We all live in different countries. We all have different experiences, and time means different things to each of us. But the most successful time managers don't just manage time, they reimagine it. And that is what we are going to do over the next 10 days. And depending on when you listen to this, you'll be able to grab the Black Friday special offer and save a significant amount of money in joining us. If you have missed this opportunity, this window, and are listening to this episode at a different time, you will be able to access the program on replay and consume it at your own leisure on demand. And as always, all the links that you need to sign up for the program are in the show notes. If you would like to be on the show, ask us a question, you can email or reach out to me on one of the social media platforms. Again, links in the show notes below. And until next time, my friend, remember, stay safe, stay well, and it's your time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to let me know by leaving a review so I can keep the good stuff coming. Come and say hi on Instagram at Success by Design Training, or visit my website successbydesigntraining.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Abigail Barnes. Until next time, don't forget, you are amazing and it's your time.